following program is an exclusive Disruption Networks production.
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broken everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Want to know what's going on at the D? Hit up DisruptionNetwork.net and check out our events calendar. Find out about upcoming guests, special events, concerts, show schedules, community activities, and more. Get connected at DisruptionNetwork.net.
Disruption Networks.
Good afternoon, everybody. How you doing? It is Tuesday. It is me, Z. And we are live on the D, baby. You can follow along on all Disruption Network social media platforms. And listen to the podcast whenever the hell you want, people. DisruptionNetwork.net. You can also find us at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher. I'm huge on Spotify. Love that app. Spotify changed the way I listen to music. Facts right there. Facts. And we'll get into that in just a little bit. Much love to Utica Coffee. Thank you so much for waking me the hell up today, Utica Coffee. This Guatemalan roast, phenomenal. I had 2 sips. I'm ready to go. I've been in a funk all day. And let me tell you, 2 sips of this Guatemalan will take you out of your funk. It's Z approved. You should go out to Utica Coffee and get yourself some of this Guatemalan. So good. So good. Also, much love to EJA Moving Services. The professional movers, when you're ready to move and relocate, hit them up at 315-335-0516. The place where they have free boxes. Most of those moving services don't offer free boxes. EJA Moving does. So if you're an elderly couple looking to move to an apartment or a home or whatever, going to the nursing home, let EJA move you to the nursing home. They also do card transport and a whole bunch of other things. If you're a college student looking to move dorms or moving back home, hit up EJA. EJAmoving.com. Also, much love to Utica Hemp and, of course, my friends over at the Saranac Brewery. Brian and Gabe joining me today. You might remember them from Universal Transit, right?
Yep.
And what was the other band, too? Or was that the only band you two were in together?
Quinn's Eskimos is what it started as.
Quinn's Eskimos?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of a spin-off in the Dylan song?
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that one of your songs that you were playing in heavy rotation?
Yes. Yeah, actually.
We did that with into Rock and Roll by Lou Reed.
Oh, cool.
So
cool. Excellent.
That was our spin on it.
Before we started this podcast, we got talking about a documentary that's out there. Brian, you've yet to see it. Gabe, you haven't seen it yet either.
I haven't.
I got to check it out last week. It's a documentary on the legendary club in New York City called the Wetlands. We've all heard of it. It was owned by an old hippie guy, and then he ended up selling it to the great Peter Shapiro, who now Peter Shapiro owns all the Brooklyn Bowls and the Capitol Theater. He owns Lock-In, and Peter Shapiro's a freaking legend out there. But his claim to fame originally was opening up the legendary Wetlands. And he was only 22 years old when he opened up that place. Can you imagine that? Imagine being 22 years old, owning a club. I was 27 at the EC, and I was a degenerate alcoholic. So imagine being 22, 5 years younger than I was, and just imagine Wow.
Yeah, it's still being alive at the end of it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Not only being alive, but the guy's a freaking living legend.
Yeah.
But the Wetlands was that club, and Brian, you've been there, right? You frequent that place often, right?
Yes, but don't date me.
Am I dating you right now?
I mean, I need to be dated, but not by that.
Not by a number dated.
Exactly.
right?
I mean, I'm looking good for 71.
You're looking for a physical date.
Yeah, I mean, that was the place. I mean, my time understanding, the Grateful Dead was really that was really the only like big circus act, so to speak, that was happening. I mean, there weren't festivals like people know
Right.
of, and I mean, in a sense, it's just amazing how many live music festivals you can go to. And these days, I mean, it's something that's become commonplace, which is awesome. But there was a point, in the early 80s, like the only show in town like for that kind of thing really was the Grateful Dead. And so many artists were like the young artists now that, if a big band comes in, if you're smart, you're looking at booking dates that could be around a big festival before and after to get some overflow, or getting people before and after to start seeing you. Whereas like, big artists already or people on the rise were doing that with Grateful Dead stuff. Like, I mean, a lot of my friends would go and see Prince, like on an off day if they were on tour with the Grateful Dead, or they'd go and see some other incredible act, because that's all that was really happening besides there being mainstream music and shows going on. And the Wetlands was kind of this underground factory in the city, it seemed like, where, acid and all that stuff was going on downstairs. Like there was a whole other thing blossoming. And
They were openly smoking pot at the place. But if you think about it, Fish came out of there. Widespread Panic came out of there. Dave Matthews came out of there. Fishbone, 311, Sublime. The list goes on and on. You can check out this documentary on YouTube. Just search The Wetlands in New York City or whatever. It's very, very well done. And as a matter of fact, Peter Shapiro is the executive director to document the story. And it should have been documented. And thank God it was. The cool thing it's not really that cool when they closed. But they ended up closing on September 10th, 2001. And they were supposed to be open on the 12th and 13th of September 2001. They knew when they were closing because they had a bunch of legal shit going on.
right.
And unfortunately, 9/11 happened. And so they were forced to shut down. They couldn't have Rat Dog play those 2 nights.
Yeah. I mean, well, the administration, they were looked at as being terrorists. So at least I got
Right.
them off of any kind of connection.
Seriously, though, the neighbors really ridiculed them. They couldn't deal with the presence of the Wetlands being right there in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
Because people were, kind of getting a little unruly, and there were shows. And it wasn't just hippie shows going on there, too. Like Sundays, they would do hardcore shows, and there was a ton of hip hop going on. It wasn't just hippies. I know it gets
Totally.
classified and genred as a hippie joint, but it really wasn't.
No, it was just a hip joint, It was a joint where anything went. And that was the cool fusion that I experienced, was being there. It was still rough edges in the city. And like you were saying, like that movie, 6 o'clock in the morning, that was the time that you left the Wetlands. First of all, you couldn't catch trains. If between 4 and 6, you couldn't catch a train. They knew that. So they're like, well, let's just keep them here for 2 hours. And when the doors open, that's easy disperse. And I mean, that's definitely what was going on.
Plus, when they first got open, there really wasn't much going on downtown. Not the whole gentrification thing wasn't happening at all. And they unfortunately caught victim of being
Similar
in
to
the
like a
middle of that.
CBGB or that kind of thing that was happening in the city that wasn't happening anymore in the city. That's where the Wetlands definitely absorbed, where it was an all genre absorption of, hey, there's a lot of kids, they don't like what's going on, there's a lot of music. And there was a resurgence in the late 80s, early 90s was another fat time for up and coming music, different genres that were inspired from, it's funny, a lot of those bands that you talk about, they might have been hardcore, they might have been, influence from the Ramones or influence from Lou Reed. And there was a cross pollination of that going on in the jam scene too, where that was absorbed and cared about just as much, even if it wasn't their scene. The musicians started to be like, hey, it's a kind of us against them. So we might as well get together here and figure some kind of thing out, And it seems like the Wetlands stretched all the way to the monopole. If you start looking at, when people were traveling and where they're getting their energy to do that kind of thing, it came from, they dipped their toe in the city. And as soon as they get up north, you'd starve if you didn't go to the monopole. You had to play the monopole. You needed gas if you're going to Vermont or if you're going to Canada or if you're going any other direction. You needed that gig,
And the monopole would give you that gig too. They
Totally.
pay their bands like $300. You had to carry all your shit upstairs.
Yep.
Talk about a place that
The fire escape.
Yeah, the fire escape.
it was work playing there sometimes.
Yeah.
And then you would play to, like, your first set would be to an open, nobody would be there whatsoever. And then also 1 o'clock in the morning
Yeah.
would show up, and all these kids would show
Yeah.
up at 1 o'clock.
The
in the
freaks.
morning.
I would love it. I would love it.
And then you'd have the
Yeah.
best show for
Yeah.
that hour.
For half an
Yeah,
hour.
yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're like, what the hell are we going to do now?
But the cool thing about that, there was always an after party.
Yeah.
You know, that was
Yeah.
the cool thing about it. You always were able to crash at somebody's house after the
Yeah.
gig.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I went there, I was like, why is this place called the Monopole? Then we set up, and it's like you have to dance around the pole all night.
Yeah. Yep.
Man, but yeah, going back to the wetlands though, that spawned off you, and you mentioned the whole festival scene. That spawned the Horde Tour.
Exactly.
Kind of spun off more of the festivals. And if you think about it, Fish was pretty much the main act to ever really bring that festival. Of course, there's the original Woodstock, and there was probably all mini festivals, but Fish is what really brought it to prominence, the whole festival thing with Clifford Ball back in '96.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that was, though, there weren't festivals or a conglomeration of bands playing together. More than 2 or 3 bands was unheard of. So to have that kind of thing go on definitely was a spawn from, I mean, I think it was a lift from, the Grateful Dead's traveling circus. There's this stuff going on in the city. And then it was like, well, this is what we need to do. And they started doing that. So that kind of changed the whole game setting, I think, for live music in that regards, definitely. And I think everybody's got a foot back in the wetlands at some point,
Yeah.
That's still continuing on from a scene from long ago.
You must check out that documentary. It's very, very good. You can find it on YouTube. It was up on, it was like, it was on Netflix forever, and then they just said, screw it, finally. They're going to release it out to on YouTube. But it's been out for like 10 years.
I mean, there's people riding around in Prevost these days that, like, you didn't ride around in a Prevost. You know what I mean? Like, all these acts are talking about that were touring the country hard. They're like, I remember seeing my first couple Fish shows. I mean, they were in a long van, with a shitty trailer for a long time.
When was your first Fish show?
Oh, that's funny. I was 18. I was in Colorado, and they played at a place called the Eldo. And it was a similar kind of thing where the guy had money to fund a good time, so he had the best of everything always going on there. And it was 112 seat capacity, I think, is the Eldo. And I mean, he's that guy. All those bands that you just named that were at Wetlands ended up at John's place in Colorado. And so it was this amazing fusion. And it was also, before String Cheese and Leftover Salmon and all those guys ever were big. They were, before they were even a band, most of them came out of Crested Butte. Like, they met there, and then they went to Boulder and they moved on. But I mean, there was a distinct travel that if anybody made it from, first of all, it was this weird thing from New Orleans to Boulder, Colorado to Crested Butte. Like, there was this thing going on where that music was happening like that. And, so I snuck in on a bicycle seat, and I'll never forget it. I was 18. There was like 100, it was probably 220 people in there because it was 100 person capacity. And it was just like, Trey on a stage that, right there, and everybody, it was just, that's how I remember.
What they are now. They're just a bar band back then.
I mean, they were completely freaks just like they are now. They weren't sober like they are now.
Right. Well, Fish in the Wetlands was the catalyst for the whole second wave of jam bands. You had your first wave of jam bands. You had the Grateful Dead, the Allman Brothers, right? The band you could probably put in there as well.
I mean, even Rush. People overlook Rush as being like Rush is a huge catalyst for psychedelic rock. I mean, they legitimately started in the early 60s. That's what they were really known for. And in Canada. So, they were very edgy. And it's when that stuff fuses together, like, you really hear what psychedelia is. You think back to that raw, like, stuff. And it's
Rush was definitely raw.
Yeah. And very precise and mathematic and a lot of patterns in the formulation of how the syncopation between the rhythmic patterns going off into the actual notation was all interwoven, like, precise. It could be the beginning of metal. They could be looked at for sure, Rush.
But did they jam, though? Was there?
Yeah, I mean,
I felt like Rush was more structured in their jams. Like, they knew, it wasn't just like an improv type of thing. I don't think Rush was an improv type of band, where the jam bands sometimes get classified as improv.
like noodly. Like ramen.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they definitely weren't ramen.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
I could see that. They could possibly, if the jam band was a thing back then in Rush's day, they probably would get pigeonholed in that genre, just kind of almost like Humphreys.
yeah, I mean,
Like
I guess
Humphreys is that
it'd be
way.
better to be like they had a cult following, like a jam band would, or like a psychedelic band had.
Gotcha.
Which was underneath the radar, and it took a while to catch on. But when it caught on, they couldn't put the fire out. Like it just blew up to the point where they're like, "Holy crap, these are the real deal." And I think most of those bands that were at least touching on that had a lot. That happened a lot too. You know, like Fish was playing super small, not doing much, and then all of a sudden, when it was their time to explode, it was just like next thing you know, we saw them at the Colorado rodeo, you know, and they're playing with like cow shit and stuff around, you know, and like nobody there, and then in my college gym, and the next thing you know, they're opening up for Santana, and we're seeing them at like the Downs in Santa Fe or something, and they're playing for 50,000 people, and then now they're playing for 100,000 people, and it just went like out of control, huge.
Opening for Santana catapult them in
Definitely.
stardom. It did.
I mean,
'Cause
definitely.
right from there they started playing theaters on their own, and then right after Jerry died, when Jerry Garcia died in '95, that's when Fish.
They pulled the weight.
They did.
Which was a weird thing because the lot scene, like they didn't protect the people on the lot scene like the Grateful Dead did. There's an illusion of how there are times being on the lot with the Grateful Dead that things happened out there and it was like allowed to happen, and then there were times when it was like you didn't do anything out on the lot. And Fish didn't have that where they were paying money to make sure that people were like laying low in the lot as far as the authority goes. So there was a lot of that went on in '95. A lot of people got their fingers slammed in the door because Jerry wasn't there, and Jerry kept the big space for people, including Fish and everybody else, because they all went and saw Jerry, and
Right.
all their minds were blown by the scene too. They're all blown by it because there's one thing about listening to Jerry and understanding Jerry and then being there, like unexplainable still. I think.
So do you think the scene came to Fish, or Fish inherited the scene?
I think it was a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah,
I think it
just kind of morphed.
Yeah, I don't think there was anybody else that had the palate or the ability to say we're going to play for 27 hours while riding a unicycle.
Right,
like,
yeah. I think it's
Nobody
more of
could
like
do
a
that.
physics question. Like there was a void, and some matter has to fill empty space.
Yep.
I don't necessarily think it was, no one willed it or chose it, but I think my tie-in too with the Russian, the Russian comparing.
you're tied in with the Russians.
Yeah. No.
communist.
Is it all of these humans had to go out and go see this live music at these clubs, and the industry and the people making the music and the people owning the clubs had to say, oh, okay, people are going to show up, so regardless of the label you want to put on any of the music, that's why when you would be at the club with a metal band and you're a jam band and you're like, oh, it's very cool, we're all on the same team, type of thing.
Well, we did a battle of the bands, Universal
Great
Transit.
story. Yeah.
So our first album we recorded in Watertown, and it's predominantly that's a metalville, like
Yeah, it
people,
is.
it's heavy metal,
Yeah.
I've played there a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is, we're totally stoked by it. But the person that gave us our record, was like, well, I'll do the record for you guys. Our first album that we recorded was recorded there. And so he put on this Battle of the Bands. And I mean, I forget the name of the band, but there's a couple national acts, heavy duty hitters that came in there. And so we're thrown in Universal Transit's thrown in the middle of this, right?
With all
It
these
was
metal
it
bands.
was 13 metal bands, one hip hop artist, and us. Where who was on the bill?
It was like for the next, if you won, he gave some money and you could record another album or something. So the long or the short is like we're there, and I mean, I love music, so I'm fine. But I mean, it's like, it's different than being at a festival that we'd normally be billed on. And so it comes to be our time, and we're like right in the middle of the day. I'll never forget playing, and this one act that just went on was just like phenomenal. The players
Yeah.
are just
Oh man, so technical, so precise. I mean, every single musician on the stage was a dragon slayer on their instrument, and great.
yeah. I mean, they came off the bus, they had their girls, they had jackets held, like kind of deal, And so we're on stage, and we were not like that, especially in Watertown on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
But we played, and I couldn't believe it. Like they sat with like glued on us, and
Yeah.
afterwards, like they're like, "Holy shit, man! Like,
How do you guys do that?
that's amazing!"
Yeah.
And it had to do with like what you're talking about, improv, feel, like us not being rigid, And so it was really amazing that experience that we had playing with being thrown to the wolves and the sharks and everything else that eats shit. Because I mean, these guys are just like, it's just like gnawing at us, and we're like, well, we're just gonna blow this. We're gonna blow our balloon up as big as we can and do our thing. And it was really great because it opened up a dialogue between, real musicianship and understanding, performing and it being a performance, and just everybody had it was like a breath of air for both, bands. And, we ended up chumming along and talking about all these different things, and it was really cool. So
you always have that common denominator.
Right. Well, and we placed third overall.
Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
We didn't have to light anything on fire either.
Playing after, right? We didn't have to smash our instrument. Playing after those metal bands, though, did that kind of pick you guys up a little more energy-wise? Like, did you find yourself attacking your notes a little bit harder and just like the vibe of the energy?
I could speak for the rhythm section and say absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember Wave Friendly Closers, so we're going to do this. We're going to rip, and we did.
I was like, I don't have enough distortion.
Yeah, I mean,
your distortion pedal now?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we knew we had to bring it, and we brought it, and it's just like any other art. You do your art, and I don't think we knew. They were watching us, and we said, "Oh, I think these guys might think this is pretty cool." But we were essentially just doing us.
Yeah, right.
I started understanding why a 6-string would have all the turn on the top too, because you have to go so fast. If you're going like this, it takes longer too. So I understand like a lot of metal players have it all straight in line, and all your tuning pegs are on the top all the way across.
Right.
And it's like, and I was like, oh, this is a lot more movement. Like things like that, I was like tripping out on whether it's correct or not. That's what I was looking at, just seeing how. I mean, they were wielding this whole other ball of energy because it was so precise. It's so heavy. It's in your face. It has to be like right on, or it's then it gets hokey.
Right. It's easier to hit those sweeps too when that neck's so big.
Yeah.
With all those tuning forks. But interesting. It's funny when they put these Battle of the Bands together, and I like it when it's just like a fruit salad of different bands, and not just one particular genre. That's the one thing I don't like about Battle of the Bands, though. It turns into like more of a competitive thing, and and I mean, obviously that's the nature of the thing. But music shouldn't be competitive. I don't think it is. Maybe hip hop should, other than hip hop, right? Hip hop should be.
It also be competitive.
Yeah, but I think most music though shouldn't be competitive, and just it's your soul, it's your creativity.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think art is life and life is art. Music is just humans expressing themselves and imitating life through art, and I think that's why I take real privilege in playing with Brian and anyone I play with, because it's not a competition. It's just a privilege to be able to do this.
That sounds really great. The funny thing is, I'm looking at this pen. It says "You're first." That's all I care about. I'm just kidding. I totally agree.
It's a sign.
Yeah. Yes.
No, it should be, as long as you're having fun. Right?
Yeah.
There's no better feeling. Two great feelings for me. The one feeling is when you're in the room and you're jamming around and you're just in that pocket and you just like look around the room and everybody's just smiling and it's just some muscle memories going, and that's a great feeling. And then performing in front of people when the vibe is like at a great level. There could be 10 people in the room or 1,000 people in the room, but if they're into it and they're giving back what you're giving out, and it's going back and forth, it's better than sex. It's better than drugs. It's better than anything. It's better than being drunk. It's better than a massage. Better than anything. I love that feeling.
Yeah, it absolutely is. They actually know that about the front part of your brain. The front part of your brain, the stuff that it does when you play live music. You can't match it. You can't match it with drugs. You can't match it with any other thing. Yeah, that collaborative, live, creative thing that our human brains do. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
We need it.
Yeah.
It's our soul.
Yeah, I just played a gig on Sunday. I sat in for the last set with another member of our band. And, it's like at the end of it, he looked at me, he's like, and, I sat in and it raised to another level because of that. There's a magic that happens. If somebody's focused and has the ability to like lift that energy that you're talking about, we always would talk about it in transit. It's like, always play, whether it's 2 people, 10 people, or 10,000 people, like the first thing has to come from us. Like it has to be exchanged and passed around here. Then it goes there. Then you get that back and forth feeling. And, just always treating it like that is what I at least find as a musician to raise that energy. Because it doesn't matter what you're playing, how technical it is, or any of that stuff. What matters to me is how it feels. And like, it's like the national anthem. When it's done right, the back of my hair will stand up. Like there's just something that happens to the synapses, like you're talking about in the brain, that means like this is happening. And being able to cultivate that, I think, night after night is a very important part. And I think that's why jam music's been so good for me. I guess I coined phrase it that is because it allows the improv to open up and it allows you to tap into that on a daily basis without it becoming stale. And I think that, things can become stale, or you can think so much about structure of how music is in heavy jazz or in heavy metal or any of that kind of stuff that's very heady. You can get to a point where you've built all these things that can actually, it starts kind of crushing that inside you, or potentially can. Anything that you work on so hard, and it's hard to transpose that to raise it so that everybody understands it.
Yeah.
Like back to the Battle of the Bands kind of thing. Having multiple genres will mean that you have multiple people to bring in. If you have a heavy metal Battle of the Bands, you're going to bring a crowd of heavy metal people. And I think the key, especially these days, is how do we get a little bit of these people to like a little bit of this, and a little bit of those people to like a little bit of that. Then you start talking about, and you start having a common understanding instead of it being so, I'm heavy metal, I'm this, I'm that, like genre specific, alienated from everything else because you're into that one thing. I think it is the beauty of music, and I think it can be a key component to, making that fusion of enjoyment and understanding with it.
Yeah, as my man Gerbil says on K-Rock every Saturday night, if you open up your ears, your mind will follow. And it's true.
Yeah.
Open it up, and who knows? You can explore all these great possibilities. There's so much great music out there. Before I got into everything today with this podcast, I was talking about Spotify, and Spotify really has changed the way people listen to music. There's always new music out there, and you can listen to podcasts, and there's just so much out there. And we're blessed to be living in these times that we are because there's so much great music going on out there.
Yep.
There's a lot of good.
Definitely, like what you guys were talking about too. We've had a proliferation of festivals, of artists, of exposure to music. Now, not only can we listen to all of the music in the United States, but all the music all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
We just had two very beautiful, I guess what would it be? Hispanic women do the Super Bowl. Shakira, she's from South America. I mean, the fact that there's been, I guess it would be like a globalization of music too. That's been very cool. So we're in a very awesome time, where, we can go, there's this metal band from Australia that I really want you to listen to. And I think that happened to me a few weeks ago. My buddy says, check this out. And it's a privilege,
Yeah. Back in the day, you'd have to wait for that mixtape to show up in the mail,
Yeah.
right? Because you would talk to people on the back of magazines, and there would be some tape trader going on, and be like, "Hey, I got this, and check out this band from my area, and I'll check out a band from your area," and that's how you did it. That was pre-internet.
Walls of tapes, dated.
Yeah, well, you're right though. I mean, a lot of the first reggae bands, I got into them because I was in an area where everyone was listening to reggae. I was in Southern California, so they said, "Oh, hey, this is what we're into." It hadn't gone bi-coastal, at least in our terms of being able to share it at that point. Yeah.
What are you guys listening to these days? Anybody you're high on right now? Any new bands? Or you kind of just listening to the same old stuff? Or Gabe, you and anybody?
Yeah. I've got a few new things.
Yeah.
It's new to me. I don't know how new it is to everyone else because I'm always dabbling. But I've really been, I've gotten into the Marcus King band lately. I've really appreciated that young man. And he's super talented and soulful and, a beautiful voice, amazing player. And
his new album is phenomenal.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Diablo.
Yeah.
Great.
It's absolutely beautiful. So I got in that a little late. I think I just caught wind of him this fall.
Yeah, but he's still young.
Yeah,
he's
right.
Only like 23, 24 years old.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that's great for life because, he's a, slightly overweight, pimply faced ginger, the type of guy who would get picked on, in a public school around here. And, God bless him. He's doing his music and he's doing his art now and he's being supported. And I just think that's great. Yeah. I've been checking out the Marcus King and then also, not that I didn't know about it, but I always love listening to it. I'm just a big fan of Tedeschi Trucks, Susan, and And Devin, so those are some of the things I settle in if I need to, chill out or appreciate some soulful music, midday.
Something soothing about Susan Tedeschi's voice.
Yeah.
Right? Just
Yeah.
calming,
Yeah.
soothing. And then she starts singing high, and you're like, wow, she's an angel.
Yeah.
She's amazing. I love Tedeschi.
Right,
trucks.
right.
Good call.
Yeah.
How about you, Brian? You got anybody you're high on right now?
You
Don't
know,
say the Grateful Dead.
No, I've spent a lot of time not listening to music in the last year. I mean, I listened to a ton of stuff, but I also had some friends of mine that I was working with on the farm, and I would let them take Spotify and put in some things, which is it's awesome. There's so much music out there, like it's amazing. And I've touched back in some old jazz again that I haven't listened to in a while, which is it's always stimulating to hear some of that stuff going on. Satriani, or go and go deep and listen to some Miles and be like, that guy's playing a trumpet. It's like he's the greatest and he's playing a trumpet. It's like, I'm going to form a band to be the greatest in the world, and I'm playing beep, 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 and it's just like his melodies, and it's just phenomenal. So listening to that kind of stuff, searching for that secret in those sounds. I mean, like Sturgill and Tyler Childers,
yes.
as far as singers-songwriters go, and delivery, like Tyler Childers, the way that he delivers, it's a parallel to like how Jimmy would deliver a word phrase, like it's on a backbeat. It's not on the front of it. It's behind it, and it's just wrapped in with real, true, gritty truths, and I appreciate that. I don't know. I'm into like the Almond Betts. They have a bunch of good writing going on. They've been the first band since the Black Keys to record in Muscle Shoals and use the analog board from Muscle Shoals. So it's kind of cool. I know there's certain things, at least I believe, when you go in and you're in a room and you have that time in a special place, that we'll call it ghosts or energy or whatever it is, it seeps out and you get that stuff on tape, So I'm looking forward to that kind of thing. It's another new album coming out from them. And just staying open-minded is the most important thing. I love so much stuff. And a lot of times I'm just like, you pick something. I don't want to, I burnt out on what I like.
Turn me on to something new.
Yeah, because I appreciate it and love it, and I don't.
You mentioned Satriani, Brian. He's got a new album coming out. I've seen.
Yeah,
the new solo. Yeah. So it's happening too.
Yeah, there's just so many amazing. I mean, Jimmy Herring's new project is just stupid. All that stuff, and just people are coming back around too. People have taken hiatus or, coming back off and playing music again too. So it's definitely just keeping your mind open is important. It's like the parachute, what you were saying back to earlier. I forget what the friend of yours said, but the mind is like a parachute. It only functions when it's opened. Yeah.
Well, you open up your ears and your mind will follow.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right.
There's the tag. That's on the back of the car. You put the other one on the front.
Like that.
Yep.
Muscle Shoals, nobody's recording there anymore?
No, actually, it's only for, it's open for, very, very select. It's not open to record. I mean, you have to know somebody. It's more for, for tours and, what's it called?
Yeah, for documentaries.
Yeah,
and
and
a lot of documentaries
you can take tours there.
Okay.
So,
cool.
But it's not open for work any longer, really. I mean, you can get it, rent it, or have it opened. But
have you ever been there?
I have not.
No.
Nope. Yeah, it's just it's one of those places. If you find just to walk into those places is pretty cool. Yeah. It's like the artifact of being on that, because there's something that happened in Muscle Shoals. Like if you go back and trace. I mean, you just trace everybody that recorded in Muscle Shoals for a month or two, and that's a good way to hear music that you've never believed in, that fuses, soul and gospel and rock and roll, rhythm and blues,
Rolling
Delta
Stones.
blues, yeah, the Rolling Stones. I mean,
that'd be a great playlist on Spotify. All the music that was recorded at Muscle Shoals.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's one out there
for sure.
For sure. Well, who we should talk about too was it the artist? She basically said that. There's no sense in making albums anymore because nobody's interested in them. Was it Sarah McLachlan that went down and recorded at Tough and Gong?
Oh, no. It was Sinead O'Connor.
Yeah, sorry, Sinead O'Connor.
That's a great with
this is a great
with
story.
Sly and Robbie from Tough Gong. I mean, and that stuff's some rootsy, amazing shit.
Oh, yeah?
And the way that it ties back, you think Sinead O'Connor, the whitest of the white, red, and
Irish.
Yeah. But the fusion of how close they are to the African trade in her lineage, it's super close. And so them getting together and the way that she speaks her tongue in her brogue and their tongue in it's amazing.
Yeah.
And they did some touring together, and so you can check that out. We were just on a kick about that for a minute.
Yeah, because she basically said, I'm not doing albums, and she went down there and just recorded all these awesome reggae tracks, a lot of them, covers and really great stuff. But she even touched on how culturally there's a lot of similarities between the Jamaican culture and the Irish Gaelic culture. So it was actually a pretty cool exchange that she had down there. But again, that was this new thing that we would not have encountered if we didn't have this modern day exposure to all the new music that's coming out and coming at us. It's very cool.
Like when you mix a lot of artists together. Have you seen what's the Beach Bum? Is it Beach Bum with Matthew McConaughey and Snoop Dogg?
No,
It's a movie out there on Netflix.
Okay.
It's called Moondog, where Matthew McConaughey plays a beach bum that's on. He kind of reminds me almost of like Caveman, Caveman Dave. It kind of reminds me a little bit of Caveman Dave, but he's very philosophical and he just goes about his day. But Snoop Dogg's in it, and also Jimmy Buffett is in it. And I saw an interview where Snoop Dogg and Jimmy Buffett were kind of like hanging out in a hot tub, just chilling, like these two worlds coming together. Like, who would imagine Jimmy Buffett with Snoop Dogg together? And they got along like they were like cosmic, energies coming together. Like,
sure.
I
believe
that's a great combo, and I love to hear that kind of stuff because I played in Florida for a while, and it was just like, no Jimmy Buffett. You'd get signs, you know what I mean? All the musicians there are like, no Jimmy Buffett,
right.
no Stairway to Heaven. And
Yeah,
it's like, well, can you play Stairway to Heaven from the beginning to the back? Anybody that says that's like, probably not. So it's a funny thing like that. But he's an amazing songwriter. I mean, he really is. Whether it's because he's poppy or all that crap doesn't matter. It actually, it's the kind of thing that's going to stick in your head, and it could be a guilty pleasure or not, something like that. You hear Pirates or you hear something that he wrote that you're just like, oh man, yeah, I totally understand that. I'm getting that. You can't get away. I at least can't get away from at least appreciating that stuff.
What a collaboration with Snoop Dogg and Jimmy Buffett would be hilarious.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, and you know what is really possible off of that? It could be like a Zach Brown Snoop Dogg, because Buffett mentored the Zach Brown band on their second album. They went down there, and all those hits that he had off that second album, the Chicken Fried and whatnot, Jimmy helped him with writing all those tracks.
I didn't know that.
Yep. They went down right there. So, yeah, notwithstanding the Snoop and Martha Stewart, friendship that we have going on, who knows what that's going to formulate.
How funny is that Martha Stewart spent more time in jail than Snoop did?
Yeah, right. I mean...
Well, that's a whole other show.
Yeah, it's a whole other show for sure. For sure, a lot of good collaborations out there. We go back to talking about Peter Shapiro and Lock-In. Lock-In is that type of festival where he likes to mix up a couple of the artists together. Like last year, it was Trey with Derek Trucks. And Trey sat in with Tedeschi Trucks, and then Derek sat in with Trey Band, and they kind of went back and forth, traded out licks and stuff like that. They're super famous for that. I know Dead & Company did something with Lettuce recently at one of the Lock-Ins. That's one festival that you could see amazing collaborations.
Yeah.
Well, Dwayne sat in with who did he sit in with? With O'Teal and a bunch of other people this year at Lock-In. And I mean, it was one of those collaborations that just went to the moon, and nobody saw it coming either. And it's those having that ability is what's going down with what he has going on for sure. I mean, having the Brooklyn Bowl helps to be able to pick on who you're gonna
all of them
take down.
All the Brooklyn Bowls. I think he's opening a new one in Nashville.
Yeah.
So there's one in Vegas, there's one in Paris, or one in London rather, one in London, one in New York. He's got them all over the place.
I mean, that's better than private prisons.
Sure.
Yeah, truth.
For sure. Amazing. Have you guys had any good sit-ins with Universal Transit?
Yeah.
And some people
absolutely
back in the day. Like who?
Well, I mean, you can talk about Dwayne. Dwayne sat with us probably about
Dwayne Betts.
Yeah, Dwayne Betts sat with us about
5-6
times at least.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, off the top of my head, just thinking about it, the thing that's cool about when we used to just drive around New England and play is we'll be at a venue, and I'll never forget, we were in Massachusetts, either in Gloucester or Salem, playing at this really nice basement of this really nice sushi bar, and we took a break, kind of looked around, and there was this Berkeley flautist was sitting with her husband in the audience, and we said, go grab your flute, and there's a lot of incidental sit-ins, because there's awesome musicians all over the place. You never know where you're going to find them. So we've had these really cool, experiences that you can't craft them ahead of time. They just happen. And fortunately, some of them are recorded. But yeah, I'd definitely say our most long-standing thing was probably with Dwayne.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just the people that we intermingled with too, I think is we had a lot of that stuff going on, which was really, I mean, it was great being able to play for open up for Melbourne for like 5 or 6 different times, and having that whole interchange of knowing the people that he's playing with and knowing other, I'm good friends with a couple different bass players that played with Melvin and having that kind of thing go on.
Melvin Seals?
Yeah. And having it go on with, even Twiddle, before Twiddle still had a Sprinter. That was, we were like, they had a black Sprinter. So it was like, whew, you guys made it. This is before like his bus and doing all that stuff.
Yeah.
Now, like, I guess Mahali probably goes on vacation with his kids in the Sprinter, and who knows what. They have a nice bus, but
I will say, Mahali's new album, he's got a solo album out. It just popped on Friday. It's awesome.
Yeah, I heard
it's
a
really,
piece of
really
it.
good. I can't stop listening to it. It's very, very good. He did a couple collaborations with G Love and Nako and a couple other great artists out there too. So if you get a chance, check it out.
yeah, G Love's funny. I've had some times with G Love, and he's a funny character for sure.
Yeah, Garrett's definitely a character. Definitely a character. But yeah, it's good to see Twiddle blowing up. But you guys have done some great shows back in the day. There was some great opening sets from you guys and other acts. So you opened up for Twiddle. Who else did you guys open for?
Bunch of people. We opened up for Brownie for, I don't think it was
Mark Brownstein?
Yeah, I don't think it was
Was that Yodo at the time?
I don't think it was the Biscuits.
Conspirator?
A couple times. It was Conspirator.
Yeah.
There was another thing too that we did for him. Trying to think who else we did. It's been a minute since we did anything.
Right. Just
You guys had a good run though.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Definitely had a good run. What do you think
For
about
sure.
getting the band back together or what? What's going to happen?
Yeah, there's some talk. We've got together already since I've been back. And putting together like a solid 45 for, Westcott and friends that are coming through to do those kinds of things where we'd open up for national people again. I think that would be the best ticket. As for now, everybody's not in. Josh, who's the other guitar player, he's the reason. He doesn't want to tour. He said that he wants to be home. So that kind of makes it so that we would do something around the region area. And we're working on new music and new things. And me and Gabe might go out west for a quick trip and do some stuff through Colorado and around some venues that I have out there going on. And just play it by ear. But definitely we're itching, and no matter what you do in life, you get to the point, especially when you have had something like that go on, where you've had the ability to travel, you've had the ability to be with great musicians and inspirations and people that will help raise your bar a little bit up more. Every time you see them, they kind of match. You want to bump up higher for your personal stuff as well as the group collective. And I think that's all the focal point that's going on. And, sometimes it just takes what it takes. It's like I just watched that new documentary on ZZ Top. It's on Netflix now. Have you seen that?
No.
It just came out. It's fucking great.
Oh, I got to check that out.
It's great. And, it's really amazing how that all went down. And it's a real down-to-earth story, It's funny because Frank Beard is the drummer, and
you don't have a beard.
yeah. So right out of the gate, it's like, what are you guys talking about?
They've been together 50 years.
No, for sure. They've gone through
years.
Yeah, they've gone through some shit too. And it's funny because he tells a story. I don't want to tell you the whole thing, but like he leaves a part of Texas where he's at, and he they're together, they're playing. That's what he's going to do, and he gets his wife pregnant. They have a kid, and he's living with his parents. And he's like, LSD came around. He ate LSD, and next thing you know, he's packing up his car, and he's like, I'm going to Houston. And he's like, it was a typical 50 thing, whereas they're yelling at him, his parents. It was like like you'd see on some funny 50s TV,
Yeah.
And he ends up down there.
After school special.
Totally, don't do this, kids. And it opened up the door for the rest that followed suit, And there was a couple different bands. Whereas Billy Gibbons was like, he was a hot shot guitar player. Everybody knew about him in around that area, and people just started getting picked off. Vietnam War happened. A couple people from Billy's band went to the war. They didn't have anything going on, and they got the call from the Rolling Stones, and that's really how it came about. Like they heard their first album that they did, and it was raw, and they wanted it that way. And they got a call, and they're like, "Yeah, the Rolling Stones." Like, yeah. So, and then it grew out of that, but it's inspiration because they were, they had heavy blues influence. They had heavy rock influence. They're not a blues band. They're not a rock band. They have their own sound going on with it. And so that's interesting. That's something that I just was into for a minute as far as music goes.
I can't wait to see that documentary.
Yeah, it's great.
Huge ZZ Top fan.
Yeah, it's great.
Love them.
It's super great. And, they really talk about, too, they traveled, I don't know, in the 70s, they're like, we're from Texas. And a lot of people shit on Texas. I mean, I lived in Colorado, and in Colorado, that's where all the money comes from. That's where all the trophy homes, you go to the ski area and you're like, yeah, look at all these houses. Who lives there? Nobody. Well, there's a 2.5, there's a 4.5, there's a 7.5 million. Who lives there? I don't know, but we shovel the roofs and live in town. Like that's how it goes down. So Texas gets a bad rap in the local scene stereotypically. And Texas is awesome. And people from Texas, I mean, I lived in Austin for a couple of years, and phenomenally awesome place culturally and all that. It's just that Texas is, it's vast. There's a lot of Texas. There's a lot of different things going on in Texas. It's
huge, man.
A different world. And their big thing was, we're from Texas. Like, we'd make no mistake about it. So in the 70s, they took like all these animals on tour with them. And like, it was like their Texas Pride tour. And, just to be like, no, we're really from here, and this is what we really love, and
they're represented
totally. And I mean, it's a great documentary.
Does it touch on the fact that none of them talk to each other?
None of them do.
When I worked with them at the State Fair, they showed up in 3 separate buses, and like there was just.
Well, that's funny. They do. They all, the interviews vary. They all talk to each other, and they all love each other. And they do specifically say though that the reason why it's gone on for 50 years is because they each have different tour buses.
Well, you could tell because each one of them. To blow up their spot a little bit, but each one of them have their own tour manager. So me, it was like all the tour managers are like butting heads throughout the day.
Oh, yeah, but that's so they don't.
Straight answers.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I mean, I need my red Skittles.
It's just so they don't.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, they know long enough. If you're on tour long enough and that's what's going on, you figure that shit out. It's like when the Eagles did their tour a while ago. I mean, I had some friends that were on that tour, and they had tape on the stages, and so by contract, you had a certain amount of stage that was their real estate. And if a roadie stepped over that tape, they got fined. So, I mean, it was like that hardcore because they couldn't stand each other.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of that going on. It's like, oh my God, this band has the best harmonies I can ever imagine. It's like you go home and it's like, I'm going to stick you in the knife in the back.
Yeah, right.
Joe, lay on the coke, Joe.
That's kind of what I was thinking about when you're asking, are we going to get back in the saddle, Z? It's like, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. Learning how to live with one another, learning how to love one another unconditionally, learning how to foster the environment for us to do our creative art, every day.
Without killing somebody.
Well, you're in a relationship with 5 other people, not just one person.
Right. So, it's like, oh, we're going to get it started. Well, we already figured out, we've got the formula down to not kill each other. So, that's like the thing. We're like, we did the work. Okay.
And the music, that's the hard thing to let go of. Like, because time goes by and you can find amazing musicians to play in amazing spots. You can find a great, you can't find a great bass
I was going to say, you can say it.
No, you can't. But you can't, to find something that works, that you've put enough time in that you don't have to think. Like, that's what transit has, that it's hard to let go of, because I know and we know how many hours of living in one room and taking one vehicle, one place, and having girlfriends deal with this, drive here and do this and all that shit to actually get it right so that it feels right. To me, anybody that I know that I really appreciate, you have to spend a bunch of time together, not only with instruments, but through all that shit to get that shit. That's what the music raises out of. It's so it's really difficult. You can put together, like I said, great groups, and they do. Like, you hear all these super groups that come together, or you go see somebody, you're like, they're phenomenal, and it sounds great, and everybody's sitting down. And there's something that can be missed. It's hard to replace the actual when you have something that's together like that, that's been through like a war in a sense, that's gone through a bunch of not having any money, not having any real things to worry about, not having a house, not having a wife, not having not having kids and all the animals. And there's a lot of things that I notice in rock and roll that I've seen bands that are together that does happen to. Oh, he's got a kid now. That's cool. But his writing is not going to be about writing getting away from the needle and how it saved my life and the way that that raw thing that reaches down into the mire and helps progressively maybe make someone's life better. It gets out of touch, you know? So I know that, I mean, and it's hard with anything. If you look at all the great albums that you've seen, no matter what genre, it's very difficult to have a second album as good as the first album. I mean, at least that hits as hard.
I get you.
You know, it's like having a sequel to a movie. You know, first movie, I mean, like Caddyshack 2, I don't know.
Does that movie even exist?
Yeah, unfortunately.
You know, so, I mean, that's kind of a harsh example because there are some second movies. I mean, it's like Star Wars is swung together, but Star Wars 27, like,
now,
save it.
Yeah, now it's just the whole, it's a series.
I'm sorry, Gabriel. I know you love that.
It's a series now.
You know, but it's very difficult, I find, to stay that because the whole thing is too, in you know, fairness to the artist. It's like if you've been struggling, you need to, you know, it's like, oh, cool. You guys you can stay in a hotel now. Woohoo. You know, you don't have to sleep in Walmart and have somebody, because you don't have room for everybody to sleep, walk around Walmart until it's time for them to start taking a nap. You know what I mean? Like that stuff happens. And,
oh, yeah.
And so that raw, when you get a shot, you don't have to think about your shot. And when you create that and then somebody says, wow, these guys are great. And they say, here's the space. And you're like, fuck, I don't know how to create that. Because you haven't been there anymore. You know, now you've had a minute to think. You have time to have coffee and go to the bathroom before you have to lay down a track. Whatever it might be, it becomes it's different. I don't know if it's more difficult. I think it becomes different. So trying on those new skills to facilitate how you're going to create something as an artist, potentially, not always, but potentially can change, you know, and I don't know, my tangent started on that. It's hard to like let go of that kind of raw essence. Like when we plug in as a band, I mean, we did once. The last time we all jammed together as a band, it was just like, you know, that shit happened.
Yeah.
It was just like,
right
we looked
away.
right down the line, and it was just like right away. It was there.
Yeah. What was there? About four to six people in the
It
basement?
didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
The electricity, that bubble that came around us was just right there.
Yeah.
That's what we're looking for.
Right.
You know, it's like a tube. It looks just like a tube, or it feels just like a tube. If I could plug myself into my amplifier and light up like a tube, that's when it's ready to go.
I love it.
It's hard to find that.
Great analogy. And it goes back to sitting around in that jam when you're in that pocket with everybody looking around the room and everybody's smiling away.
Yeah.
You know you've hit that point. And really there is no better feeling than that and playing live.
Yeah, and having people sit in, like you're saying, you know, we've had some great cats, people that have played with numerous different national acts, friends of ours that have sat in, that they're just like, yeah, I'm going to sit in, because they plug into that and they're just like, woohoo.
Right.
You know, like providing space has always been like a key way to describe it. It's like, that was
having
one thing.
A blank canvas.
Yeah.
It's the same principle.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, the most important thing that I find is like if you're plugging in, you know, the thing that I'm really good at, mostly, it's not about playing music. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about, okay, we're plugging in. It's like, and creating this space, whatever it takes to have that space, so that nothing can happen or everything can happen, but it's your space.
Right.
Like that's I don't know, that's kind of a trick that I think that we have, is the most important thing, is to be able to, this is our space. Doesn't matter who's out there. By creating that allows something else to happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I think that's music.
Yeah, it is music, man. It's our best friend.
Yeah.
Imagine how life would suck with no music.
Life does suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life without music would be flat. You ever see that T-shirt?
Yeah.
Just stay out of the D minor.
Yeah, right. Man, Brian, you believe we just chopped it up for an hour talking about music, and we could probably go for another 2 hours, but unfortunately, I got to get out of here. We have the Cats at the Stanley Theater tonight.
Woohoo!
2 nights of Cats, legendary performance.
I know that's where Gabriel's going to be. Any free ladies out there, come on down.
If you're looking for ladies, that's the place to go.
I'm
man.
not.
Yeah, for sure. That's the place to be tonight.
I'm going.
Looking for that date.
Not to be dated.
Not to be dated. We didn't even talk about CBD and everything else. We just got rolling in the music. So that means, Brian, of course, you need to come back in again.
Okay, cool. See you next time.
See you next week. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll see you tomorrow. But unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow. But Thursday, we're doing our DWI special. So what's going to happen on Thursday is I'm going to sit here and get drunk.
Nice.
And then we're going to do breathalyzers.
Oh, can I come?
Yeah.
Sick.
For sure.
Drink that Guatemalan, man. I don't know. That stuff jacked me up.
It's great.
I know.
It's great.
It really is, right?
Something else in there.
No, not at all. It's
Jacked up.
It's straight up Utica coffee.
Right
And
on.
thank you so much to Utica Coffee for hooking us up with all the delicious brew that they have. I got a whole closet full of stuff. They hook me up every time, and there's some great flavors out there too that they have.
Nice.
Oh,
We should
yeah.
start a cold
Yep.
brew down here for you then.
Yeah.
Get a nice glass thing so you can start a cold brew here.
Great idea.
Yeah.
This Guatemalan would make a great cold brew.
That's
Heck yeah.
actually the Utica Coffee by me. They have the Guatemalan and the cold brew right now.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. There's one right on the Village, the old Hemstrats in Clinton. They have
Yeah,
Utica Coffee right there.
Yeah.
Yep. Hit it up all the time. It's fabulous.
Yeah, that's your go-to spot.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Definitely.
Very cool. Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in. When you guys get some music, get you come in, play some music maybe?
Fabulous.
Or maybe just come in anyways and play. We'll jam out a little bit.
Now we got some stuff that we've been working on.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, we do. We do. Thank you for having us.
Of course, and if you do have a gig or whatever, please keep me in the loop. I know we could talk for like another 3 hours if
Yeah,
you wanted to.
right. Next time, I still have leftover notes from this time, so we can continue the discussion.
Here's my notes.
There it is. There's your notes. Thank you to EJA Moving Services, Utica Hemp, Saranac Brewery, and of course my friends over at Utica Coffee. And with that, I bid you a farewell. People will have a good night, and I'll see you soon. Later.
So you just bought your dream home, and now it's time to move. Let's face it, nobody likes to move. All the packing, unpacking, lifting, upstairs, downstairs, and broking everything, including your back. Let the professionals at EJA Moving Company take all the stress and pain out of your move. Competitively priced moving, relocation services, office moves, and complete packing and unpacking services. They work with everybody to make it simple and easy for you to move and relocate. Call EJA Moving Company at 315-335-0516. When it's time to relocate, have EJA Moving do all the work for you. Hit them up online, ejamoving.com.
Want to know what's going on at the D? Hit up DisruptionNetwork.net and check out our events calendar. Find out about upcoming guests, special events, concerts, show schedules, community activities, and more. Get connected at DisruptionNetwork.net.